to 6 classic British beers from the 70s that vanished from pub taps forever. Some were victims of brewery takeovers, others couldn't compete with changing tastes, but all of them left a lasting memory for those who enjoyed them. Let's dive in. Beer. Number 1. Watney's Red Bar. First up, we have Watney's Red Barrel, and if you were drinking in the 70s, you couldn't escape it. This was one of Britain's first keg beers, and Watney's pushed it hard across the country. Red Barrel was everywhere in the early 70s, but it became something of a punchline. Beer purists hated it. They said it was gassy, tasteless, and represented everything wrong with modern brewing. It even got mocked in Monty Python sketches. The campaign for Real Ale, or CAMRA, which formed in 1971, basically used Watney's Red Barrel as their poster child for bad beer. By the late 70s, its reputation was in tatters, and Watney's eventually withdrew it. The brand tried to rebrand with different products, but Red Barrel was finished. Beer number 2. Whitbread Tankard. Number 2 is Whitbread Tankard, another keg bitter that dominated 70s pub culture. Whitbread was one of Britain's brewing giants, and Tankard was their mass-market bitter. It had a distinctive taste that regular drinkers could spot immediately, and it was competitively priced, making it a popular choice in working men's clubs and local pubs. But like Red Barrel, Tankard faced the wrath of the Real Ale movement. As craft brewing and traditional methods made a comeback in the 80s and 90s, these big keg bitters fell out of favour. Whitbread itself went through massive changes, eventually exiting brewing altogether. Tankard disappeared as the company restructured and sold off its brewing operations. The name that once filled thousands of taps across Britain simply vanished. For those who grew up drinking it though, Tankard was their pint, and no amount of craft beer snobbery can take away those memories. Beer. Number 3. Courage Tavern. Our third vanished beer is Courage Tavern, a keg bitter from another brewing heavyweight. Courage was a major player in British brewing, and Tavern was their answer to the mass market. It was smooth, easy drinking, and available in pubs across southern England and beyond. The 70s saw fierce competition between the big breweries, and Courage Tavern went head-to-head with brands like Watney's and Whitbread. For a while, it held its own, but the consolidation of British brewing proved fatal for many individual brands. When Courage merged with other breweries and eventually became part of larger groups, rationalization was inevitable. Tavern was gradually phased out in favor of other brands in the portfolio. By the 90s, Courage Tavern had disappeared completely. The Courage name survived longer, but even that eventually faded as corporate ownership changed hands multiple times. Another victim of the big brewery shake-ups that transformed British beer. Beer number 4. Double Diamond. Number 4 might surprise you. Double Diamond. Yes, it technically still exists in some form, but the beer that millions knew in the 70s is long gone. Double Diamond was absolutely huge. In the 60s and 70s, it was one of Britain's best-selling beers. Coop's flagship brand had a massive advertising campaign. "A Double Diamond works wonders" was one of the most famous slogans of the era. This pale ale was served in bottles and on draft, and it had a loyal following. You'd find it in practically every pub in the country. But as tastes changed and the brewing industry consolidated, Double Diamond lost its shine. The brand was passed between different owners, reformulated, and eventually reduced to a shadow of its former self. While you can still technically find Double Diamond in a few places today, it's nothing like the beer that dominated the 70s. The original recipe and that widespread availability? Gone forever. It's a reminder that even the biggest brands can fade when the industry shifts beneath them. Beer number 5. Trophy Bitter. Number 5 is Trophy Bitter, a beer that was massive in certain regions but virtually unknown in others. Trophy was brewed by Coop, the same company behind Double Diamond, and it had a strong presence in the Midlands and parts of northern England. In the 70s, if you walked into a pub in Burton-on-Trent or nearby areas, Trophy was likely on tap. It was a decent, straightforward bitter that appealed to traditional drinkers. Nothing fancy, just a reliable pint at a fair price. But regional beers like Trophy were vulnerable when the big breweries started consolidating. As national brands took priority and brewing operations centralized, these local favorites were quietly dropped. Trophy Bitter disappeared in the late 80s as Allied Breweries rationalized its portfolio. The taps that once poured it switched to other brands, and within a few years, Trophy was just a memory. For those who drank it regularly, it was their local plen, and when it vanished, something irreplaceable was lost.